before I got into fitness, I used to make pizzas for a living. And even though it's about 25 years ago, over 25 years since I left the pizza place, I've continued to make pizzas every Saturday, almost every Saturday for the last 10, 15 years or so. And I'm trying to keep the recipes exactly the same as what I did when I worked in the pizza place. And it's the recipe I want to share with you today, so you can make your own. So what you'll need is a sachet of yeast, dried yeast will do, a teaspoon of salt, some olive oil, about 450 ml warm water, some bread flour, and a bowl. So first step, take the sachet of yeast, put it in the bowl. Now, take the salt. I'll just put a teaspoon worth. A little bit of olive oil, I don't know, 1 or 2 teaspoons full. It's something I've never actually measured, because it's just like back in the day. Just put in, once you get used to the ingredients, then you never really measure them. You get exactly the same every week, every time. Now I use about 450 ml of water, because the great thing here is this will give you about, once mixed in, you'll get about 2 like 12-inch size pizzas, plus you'll get a loaf of bread with the remaining dough. So what we do here is now going to mix right. So what we're going to do now is start to mix it. Okay, so you've got all this water, you've got the yeast, you want to try and mix it all together. You can use a spoon, you can use a blender if you like. I don't actually have, or a food mixer, but I don't have that, so I just use my hands. Now we add some flour. I'd say, so this is a 1.5 kilos, and you get about, so I'd say about 750 grams of flour. Okay, because you're going to use it to mix it in, and I'm going to use some later on. Okay, again, it's something I've never measured, but you usually get about at least 2 batches of dough per bag, so it would be 750 grams in. So what I like to do is just put a wee bit in and start to mix it in. Now, I've made some adjustments over the years, so we use dried yeast because we used to use fresh yeast back in the day. But you can't really get fresh yeast, so dried yeast it is. In fact, the only time we were able to get fresh yeast was during the pandemic, when you couldn't get anything. So a lot of the supermarkets were made fresh yeast available. That was just amazing. Now, I just put wee bits of, small amounts of flour in at a time, okay, just like this, because it's still, you want to then mix it. You don't want to put in too much too soon, otherwise it gets all heavy and it just doesn't rise at all. So this is just continual mixing. This bag's a bit finished, so this needs a lot of mixing. Okay, this is where I like to get, as I say, you can use a blender. Obviously the big difference here is now I don't use a professional dough machine, but I like to just use my hands, just mix it in with the fingers, because then you get the feel of the dough. Okay, so it's still way too wet. Okay, so it's still got a little bit more to go, but you need to keep mixing it. So this was So I worked back in the 90s, or the late 1900s, as my school teacher wife's pupils referred to it as. You know, back in the day when we used to go about on penny farthings and doffer caps to one another. So before I got into Venice, I worked in a place called Marcellos Pizza in Perth. And it's such a great place to be. Because it was a wonderful place to learn about good food, but then met lots of great people. I mean, it was a small Italian takeaway, and we had a bit of a boom in the mid-90s because we had a bar opened next door, and that was quite a trendy place, so we became busier as a result. And it was funny, even though you had lots of drunk people, never had any trouble. Never had any trouble at all. Everybody was quite friendly. And you would see different mix of people. You get people coming in from their work, people going in for a couple of drinks before they go home, or it's the weekends have a few beers, then either stop for some sustenance in the middle of the night or middle of the evening, or come in on their way home. And at the same end of the scale, you get some teenagers who see at the beginning from the decade, see them quite young, coming in for a can of Coke and maybe a bar of chocolate or something, but then as they grow up, you see them as they start to go into work and become a waiter, and it's a really wonderful way to learn about people. Now, at this stage, I'm going to tip this out here. I'm going to empty all the flour, all this up at the bottom of the jug. I should really get a big glass bowl to do this, but I don't, so that'll be for another day. So now we continue mixing, and I'm going to get rid of all the dough on from my hands. The excess dough off my hands, then this will make it easier. Could probably half a pizza sticking to my hands. Now, this is pretty good. You fold it in, push down with the palm, and you're just constantly kneading. Okay, this is where you start to get to the feel of the dough. It's not something that happens, it takes like minutes to do. This is, you want to keep mixing the dough. I still need a little bit more. So this is the bit that you kind of don't see, so it's not all the flour, there's only a small amount, some of the flour goes in, but it's all the stuff that you use later. So one of the hazards of working there was you get to know a lot of people, but never know their names. So you just get to know people by what they order, because everybody orders the same thing. We're creatures of habit. And once I left Marcellos and got to fitness and started going to networking events, I started to see the same faces again, but I never knew their names. I just all knew by the kind of pizza they ordered. So it took a while to get to remember their names. We had some great moments, let's say some footballers coming in from St Johnstone, Rangers, we get people, the ski bus that came up from the borders, they go to Aviemore or Glenshee, and they would actually phone us from the ski station. They'd phone us when they were leaving. So then we get, I don't know, however many was on the bus that day, they would stop in at Perth on the way back down the road. And there was one year in particular, there was still snow in the hills in April, May time. It was wonderful, wonderful. So it's kind of a job that, you know, what's the kind of thing that starts out as a job you maybe plan to do for 1 or 2 years, but I ended up staying for about 9 because it was so much fun. That's Spogie you can hear in the background. So the funny thing was, you know, when I left, as we came towards the end of the decade, I'd been thinking about it for a while, well, you know, about time to go on to do something else, but I never knew what to do, what I wanted to do. You know, I thought about, you know, it'd be great to go and do like a pizza restaurant where the pizza chef is in the front, so you can actually go, you know, do things like, you know, tossing pizzas and tossing bases, etc. You know, it's just a showpiece thing. You know, that would have been quite nice to do, but the rest, it wasn't until actually 1997 that my back went into spasm, and it was while I was off, so I had to go about ballot open for the London Marathon, and I thought, I'd always watched it on the telly, but I thought, it's for people way fitter than me. I thought, it sounded like the perfect target, so I thought, here's an opportunity. I thought, I'll go and enter it and see what happened when I got in first time. And that was the catalyst for change, really, because once I actually ran the marathon across the finish line, I thought, yes, this is it. This is what I want to do. It felt so good. Felt nice to be able to. Thought, actually, I'd love to be able to. I'd just done something I'd always wanted to do, but never thought I could. And I thought, I want to go and want to help other people do the same. And that's where I ended up becoming a personal trainer. Right, at this stage, now, you'll know when it's ready. You know when the dough's done, because it no longer sticks to your hands, and it no longer sticks to the surface. Okay, so I'm just going to leave that now to rise for a wee while. So this is going to leave this to rise for about half an hour or so, but what I'd suggest actually, once you leave it to rise, this is a good time to go and start cleaning up before you come to the next bit. Okay, so for the next stage of the process, while the dough's rising, we're going to do the tomatoes, the sauce. So now we'll also use a teaspoon of salt, a dash of olive oil, use some oregano, and we're going to use 2 cloves of garlic. This is all down to personal preference, basically, but something. I'm just going to finely chop that. Chop as finely as possible. Then I'm going to add that into tomatoes and just mix it in a wee bit. Mashing down. You don't want the tomatoes too chunky, but if you're getting the chopped tomatoes, when again, this is a standard tin chopped tomatoes from the supermarket. They didn't have the ones I was looking for, but so just got the peeled ones. Not a big fan of getting the ones with which it's got the herbs in already. Not sure what's I like to just add everything myself, so you know what flavour you like. Okay, so that's that there just now. We're going to weigh that. So now come back to the dough. It's risen a bit. Could probably do it a wee bit longer, but I'm going to this stage just going to make up, lengthen out a little bit. So it should feel a little bit more. To begin with, it feels a bit like, Play-Doh or something like that, but it's a wee bit, not quite as firm as that, but the more as it starts to rise, it becomes a bit more pliable. So what I want to do is take a couple of, so it should basically sit in the palm of your hand. I'm going to take that, take a big chunk. Again, it depends on how big you like your base. So this is worth trying over and over till you find the right size for you. So ideal, as I say, but you want a 12-inch base, so that's probably about right. And then what you do, just fold that in. A bit of flour on that, and now leave that to rise. Right, now for the next part of the process, and that's to roll the pizzas out to get them on the tray. Now this is a standard 12-inch tray. I'd get a little bit of oil just to kind of grease the tray so that the pizza doesn't stick. Okay, now you can use a rolling pin here, but I prefer not to. I used to use an empty wine bottle. I actually just prefer using my fingers, funnily enough. So what we're going to do is just put a little bit of flour there. Now, all this is not to press out on the base. Okay. Just to expand the base a little bit. Okay, it's nice and it's risen a little bit, it's nice and light, it's easier to work with. So you keep turning it over and keep pressing it out. As I say, you might find it easier just to use a rolling pin. Now, I left probably about an hour between making the balls to actually get to this point to let it to rise. Okay. So you probably will need. So when I make them on a Saturday, start making the dough at least 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock. We plan to stick them in the oven about. To be ready for just after 7, okay? So that's the kind of length of time that you need, and it's just leave it to rise, and it's not about doing it in a rush, okay? It's just taking that time because then it's worth it at the other end. So we've now got a base that looks a bit like this, and what we're going to do is probably the best bit ever. Here, I'm going to do. Place it on the palm of my hand. Now, and spin it. Okay? This helps to stretch out the base. So then just put it in the base, and you just have to spread it out so it goes flat. Leave the bases in the trays to rise a little bit. Put the oven on. Now I've put this on at say 200 degrees on an electric oven, so I don't know what that converts as to if you've got something different from an electric oven. So worth it, but you want it a high setting, okay? Otherwise it'll probably take a long time to cook. So now we're going to prepare the toppings. First step, the mozzarella, okay? Now, you've got bags of water, so you want to kind of drain it, squeeze it a little bit. I just take a bit of kitchen roll, cover it, just to drain that a little bit, makes more water out. Because otherwise it'll just make the water will seep through into the base and it kind of just makes it a little bit mushy. So. Right, so we've got mozzarella here, so we're just going to slice that. Side. Now, I often put the toppings. It's entirely up to you what you use. You could the beauty of a pizza is that you could pretty much use anything you like. Now, I often when I make them on a Saturday, I usually got leftover lentil and veggie stew from the night before that I put on the top. Tonight, because this is actually Wednesday, I'm going to use, we don't have the stew, so I'm going to use red onion and mushroom. Yeah, got two bases, this will do. And what I'm going to do, so that's the base is covered. I just put, it's just enough to cover the base. I don't like a lot of tomato in it, so as long as it's all covered, then that's all good. Now we then just tear up the mozzarella, and there we go. That's here's the pizza so far. Now we've got other ingredients on. The great thing about all this is that, I mean, it's certainly I'm only making 2 pizzas, so you might need all the dough for 4 pizzas, however many people you've got. But with the tin tomatoes, I've only used half, so I can put this in a tub and mix it with some pasta. I've still got a wee bit of onion left over, so I could use that in a pasta dish tomorrow. So that's the pizzas in. I'd say they take about 10 minutes, but they'll take longer than that, probably maybe about 12 minutes or so, 12 to 14 minutes, depends on how you like your pizza, basically. So set it for initial 10, then just keep checking it until you get it the way you want it. So here we go, first pizza out the oven. So there we go, that's the pizza served, and all that's left to do now is go and enjoy it. So give this a try. I'm going to post about it, take a picture, tag me in it, and let me know how you get on. Happy pizzaing.